like to welcome everyone present today and those watching the broadcast and call the October 10th, 2017 regular meeting to order with all board members present in just 1 second. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we've got the Army JROTC Color Guard from Hoover High School to present the colors. Please stand.
Center, face. Present. Close.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Close. Right, face. Forward, march.
Thank you, Hoover, JROTC Color Guard. Okay, if you wish to address the board on any of the agenda items before the board today and your name is not on the speaker list printed on blue paper located at both entrances to the auditorium, and if you've not already submitted a request for public testimony form, for a public testimony form, please complete the form and submit it to Ms. Ward, our board action officer. Speakers on agenda items will be called on to speak during the discussion of the agenda item. Once discussion begins on an item, no additional public speaker requests will be accepted. Our board bylaws provide that public testimony on agenda items is limited to a maximum of 20 minutes per consent and/or action item, allowing for a maximum of 10 minutes per opposing viewpoint. Public testimony speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker, and depending upon the total number of speaker requests received by the board on an item, the time may be reduced to 2 or 1 minute each. The time limit for speakers on today's agenda items will be announced at each item. Okay, can we get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. And does any board member wish to remove any of the items from the superintendent's consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion? Do we have speakers?
One speaker on item J19.
Okay.
I'll move the superintendent's consent agenda with the exception of item J19.
Thank you. Please vote. Okay, our student presentation tonight is from Cubberley Elementary School, Project Lead the Way Robotics Project. Vice President Beiser, would you like to introduce the Cubberley folks?
Yeah, I'm thrilled that we have some folks from Cubberley Elementary School in Serra Mesa here tonight. The presentation will be supported by the teachers Andrea Kennedy and Miguel Rodriguez and Principal Magdalena Ruvalcaba. So here we go, Cubberley Elementary School. And Kimmy Lochtefeld, the area superintendent also. Thank you very much. Glad to see you kids here. Thanks.
Hello, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with our awesome Cubberley team. I'm Kimmy Lochtefeld, the Area 3 Superintendent. And before I bring up our school team, I just wanted to give you a real quick update as to what Kearney Cluster has been up to for the last several years. We are continuously strengthening our vertical pathway around STEAM education. So we have a very strong focus, obviously, at the high school level. And we utilize Project Lead the Way, an outstanding project-based learning curriculum that is aligned with Common Core. It's real-world based, and students work with industry partners. And so we thought about how do we strengthen that. We have a strength pathway with our middle school with Taft and Montgomery, a strong STEAM focus, but now we're looking at how do we strengthen that at the elementary level. Well, we have a pioneer school here tonight who has been now in year 2 of Project Lead the Way launch. And this is an amazing group of students who will be sharing with you their learning and what they're getting out of the program, but also the real-world experiences that will transcend from TK all the way to college and career and beyond. So we're really excited about that, strengthening the pathways, and I have a special announcement that starting November 28th and 29th, we are going to be bringing together our first Kearney Project Lead the Way launch teachers, our teachers who are going to be the trainer of trainers, and they are going to be leading the way at our elementary schools, 8 of them in Kearney. So we're really excited that we are starting to strengthen this pathway, and that we see each year we will roll into TKK, TK1, and so on and so forth to 5th grade, so that we have this true vertical pathway and alignment. So we're so excited about that, and that's right around the corner. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our Cubberley School of Creativity, Innovation, and Design to join us here at the podium, and our wonderful principal leader, Ms. Magdalena Ruvalcaba.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. It is a pleasure and an honor to acknowledge, introduce, and thank 2 very dedicated teachers. I would like to begin by thanking Miguel Rodriguez. Would you please stand? Miguel worked he's from IT, and he worked with our students to create the video you will see. In just a few days, Miguel led our students through the process of video recording, storyboarding, scripting, and editing. They came across some challenges with a video editing platform that was pulled right in the middle of their project. But with Miguel's leadership, the students were able to overcome the challenges and complete their project. So thank you very much, Miguel. I would also like to introduce Andrea Kennedy. She is a 5th grade teacher at Cubberley. She's also our lead teacher for Project Lead the Way. Andrea is an enthusiastic teacher who engages students and models a love for learning. She has been instrumental in the success we are having in implementing Project Lead the Way at Cubberley. Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy, for your leadership at Cubberley. And I will turn it over to Mrs. Kennedy.
Innovative, engaging, collaborative, imagination, creative, exciting, and fun. These are some of the words that our teachers and students at Cubberley use to explain Project Lead the Way. As the lead teacher, I've watched students from TK to 5th grade bursting with excitement when their teachers say, "We're going to do Project Lead the Way." So in our Kearney cluster, kids from TK all the way to seniors in high school are participating in this amazing hands-on science and engineering program based on the NGSS standards. I would like to introduce some amazing 5th grade innovators: Vanessa Lamone, Blaze Rice, Sanam Arfi, Jason Lindbeck, Isis I always mess up her last name, and I'm sorry, Isis, I told you, Nasir Samuels, and Michael Stanley.
Members, tonight we would like to share the Project Lead the Way design process. During each experiment, we follow these simple steps: ask, predict, investigate, observe, and explain.
First, we ask a question that we want to find the answer to by performing an experiment.
Next, we think of a hypothesis and possible outcome for our experiment.
Then we design and perform our experiment.
Now, through our experiment, we observe if our hypothesis is correct or what the outcome of the experiment is.
Last, we explain our solution to the problem or how we can test the experiment again.
In order to create our video, we had to ask what we wanted our video to show. We wanted our video to show what we do in Project Lead the Way and how it helps us. Next, we decided what should be in our video. We made storyboards to create each scene and then shot each part. After collecting video footage, we pieced the video together through editing and voiceovers. This evening, we would like to share our video that showcases Project Lead the Way.
My name is Blaze Rice. My name is Jason Lindbeck. My name is Michael. My name is Sanam Arfi. Hello, my name is Isis. My name is Vanessa Limon. My name is Nassim Samuels.
We all work in the ICANN studio at Cubberley Elementary School.
Together we make scientific discoveries using Project Lead the Way.
One of the things we did was build robots that had to do a job.
Sketching gives us new ideas about what we want to build. With Project Lead the Way, we plan and design our experiments first.
What I know about Project Lead the Way is it's a program you can use like innovation design where you get to perform experiments and you get to test them out.
You learn how to work with each other, and it's a program that really builds your confidence in learning and building stuff. You have to work together to accomplish the robot.
No. It's meant to be used on, my robot's meant to be used when a soldier gets injured. It's supposed to rush in and save them with a...
So yours is like a medic robot?
Yeah, medic. Mine wants to go to the moon.
It has suspension so it can go over rocks easily.
Your robot is a can crusher?
Yeah, so how some people step on the cans to make it flat to throw it away. This has a mallet at the end where it's programmed to go bam. Just crush it.
This cuts your grass for you, so you don't...
The Chromebooks we have help us with researching about robots, how they will work, and to get more information. We couldn't do Project Lead the Way without them.
We are using the materials and parts from Project Lead the Way to experiment and build things.
Here our class is working on the robot designs we made.
We experiment to make new ideas for society because robots help do things that are unsafe for people. You have to use strategy and you have to think of what you have to do.
We had to follow these instructions.
Sometimes we disagree on each other's ideas,
But we work together as a team to figure out solutions to our problems.
If we lost the ICANN studio, we wouldn't have the materials or the space to do experiments because our classroom isn't big enough for them.
We have lots of materials in the ICANN studio that are perfect for science and technology and engineering.
In the ICANN studio, students learn about a lot of real-world problems like illnesses and diseases, future jobs like engineering, and more.
One of the most important parts of Project Lead the Way is you're allowed to make mistakes and learn from them.
Last year, we forgot to stick these into the motors and the wheels wouldn't spin. So we had to cut this whole thing apart to put these into the motors.
Something out if there's an awkward silence because there's a lot of awkward silence. Since I really don't know what to say.
It teaches you how to engineer, and it's not only about that, building robots. It's also about figuring out problems and doing experiments and stuff like that.
Mistakes make you try harder. Making mistakes teaches me to learn better because I'll remember what the problem was better.
Last year I thought that was amazing. You're a genius. Oh, it worked.
Oh, did it pick it up?
We would like to present each board member with a Cubberley bumper sticker and t-shirt.
All right. Swag. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
I want to thank all the kids. What a great job at Cubberley. And thanks to all the parents that are coming down. And I'm often remiss to mention that, I've had several meetings with the superintendent, and the staff is continuing to work diligently to make sure that you have your whole campus back next year. That's the goal, so that Kavod has a place where they can grow, and you have a school where you can continue to grow your enrollment. Thank you.
All right, thank you again, Cubberley. Okay, we'll now move to non-agenda public testimony, and I apologize, I forgot when we adopted the agenda, I was going to recommend that we move item H1 up to directly following non-agenda public testimony.
I amend my motion.
Okay.
I agree with the second.
Okay.
I believe that's after the superintendent report, information report.
Do you want to do it then, or do you want to do it like right after? I think right after a non-agenda public testimony. Okay, please vote. Okay, thank you. Okay, today's meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting of the Board of Trustees that is conducted in public, and board members will not engage in a dialogue with members of the audience. The opportunities for members of the public to provide input to the board on non-agenda matters and items on the agenda is through the submittal of a timely public testimony request. The time periods for speakers on each item are set by the board as described in the board's bylaws and will be announced to the members of the public as each agenda item comes up for discussion by the board. Testimony on non-agenda items is limited to a maximum of 15 minutes per topic. Public testimony speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker, and depending upon the total number of speaker requests received, the time may be reduced to 2 or 1 minute each. If an issue needs further attention, the board may refer the matter to the superintendent for review and/or investigation. Today, each non-agenda speaker will have 2 minutes to address the board. Please remember no deferral of time is allowed. The board asks that speakers focus their comments on the issues and not on individuals. Non-agenda public testimony is for only those topics not on today's agenda. If your topic is on the agenda, you will be called on to speak when we get to that subject matter item. When you begin speaking, the green light will come on, a yellow light will, when you have 1 minute left, and when your time is up, the red light will appear and a bell will ring. The lights are located directly in front of the podium on the dais next to Ms. Ward. Please finish your sentence when your time is up. We will now hear public testimony on non-agenda items. As I call your name, please come forward. Katie Dombraukas, Francine Maxwell, Citizen, Patty O'Leary, Elizabeth Gakakis, Lydia Young, and Jessica Fox. And do we have any other requests? Nope. Okay. Come forward, please. Yeah, thanks.
Hi, my name is Katie. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was here last year. This is a follow-up to the patriotic exercise policy that you previously had in place, and that is going to, new language is going before you in December, and you plan on adopting it. The language you plan on adopting, I've been told you're taking it directly from the state code itself, 2 different state codes. I'm requesting that we have a meeting so that I can give my own voice, so that I can have a voice, so I can help you. I have researched this topic, and I'm a member of the community. Let me have a voice. Let's have a meeting so we can get this policy right, because I do have an issue with 2 main issues. The state code itself, it gives the example of a patriotic exercise. We don't need that. We're professionals. I was even a school administrator myself. I'm a current teacher. We can come up with our own creative patriotic exercise. We know when's required. It's really just giving the example of the clear-cut, easy way out. The pledge is just, It's stifling the creativity of our schools. Our schools could be creating their own pledge, one that actually values diversity. The pledge doesn't value diversity. It's completely inaccurate that we are one nation under God. Currently, 40% of millennials, like myself, we have kids in our school. 40% of us have no religion. Back in '76, when that code was written, only 6% had no religion. We have a change of times here, and it's continuing to grow. Let's value the diversity of our own school, of our students. Let's not make them feel ostracized. Let's not tell them, well, Johnny, if you don't want to say the pledge because you don't believe in God, sit down, shut up, and you're not going to be part of the community. I think that's an awful thing to say to a kindergartner, especially my daughter. So please consider rewording this policy. Don't say that the pledge is appropriate. Just leave it out. Just say no example. We encourage you to create an exercise that all will be proud to come together and stand and recognize our American values of diversity. So please do that. The other thing is the education component. I know that one of the codes adds the instruction component, but it's still not instructing them they have a right to abstain. They don't tell them what the words mean. They're only instructing them a tiny bit and also not telling them that not standing is also demonstration of your patriotism. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh, I broke it. Bernie Mac said, only way you can get upset is when you're expecting something. So the superintendent has to go to Lincoln almost every week, maybe twice a week, and I wasn't expecting anything to change. I met with several parents, and 4 weeks into school, I think we're in our 8th weekend, and parents aren't receiving phone calls. They're reaching out to their teachers, they're not receiving phone calls, they're not receiving emails, and the superintendent's presence is known on that campus. So where's the professional development taking place? Where's the encouragement that the reason you have a job is because these parents gave birth to children so that you can have a job? Where's the celebration of the parent? Where's the community engagement? I went to a meeting and I witnessed the child sharing how she ordered pizza. So there was 3 components there. She had a substitute that missed her from class. There was security that she got to walk by that didn't stop her. And then I think we have enough VPs that there should have been supervision on the campus at Lincoln. There was no food event. She ordered a personal pizza. What if she didn't have money? There's a disruption on that campus from a pizza driver who we don't know who he is coming on the campus to deliver one pizza. That child missed her bell-to-bell education. So I have a problem with you making sure and thinking that everything is okay at Lincoln because you put into the superintendent's evaluation, I need you to go to Lincoln once a week and check what's going on. Nothing has changed. The pulse is still the pulse. I need for the Board of Trustees to ask for a monthly status report. What has changed? What have you saw movement in? I don't mean just asking the area soup in her. Ask the people that are there with boots on the ground. Ask the teachers, are you getting encouragement? Are you getting things that you need to support you so that you can move the needle at Lincoln and we can change the narrative? We're trying to change the narrative at District E. And there's some people and some other organizations that are assisting, but when you have the top dog on campus and nothing is moving, that's a problem.
Hi, my name's Patty O'Leary, and I am a foster parent of a high school child, but I'm also been in education for nearly 40 years at the university level. And my issue today is regarding the weighting of classes and transfer of transcript information from a non-district school. First of all, the weighting of classes, it came to my attention just this week that you greatly limit the number of weighted classes that you allow. And I have been on many scholarship committees, and what I notice is that a lot of the scholarships just go by the weighted GPA, and when you're limiting the number of classes and other school districts aren't doing the same, you're actually putting the San Diego students at a disadvantage. Sweetwater is an example. Their students in something that's where the initial screening is based on weighted GPA, they're 3 to 1 more likely to get a scholarship even though they may be taking the same curricula. So I think that's an issue because they can't get the scholarships. The second is the transfer of classes on a transcript. If a person has been in a non-district school and attended and taken certain classes, and I've emailed you all like 2 examples, I think it should be translated over to reflect the same thing. Honors American Literature that had like 11 books that they read during the semester should not be translated over to an unweighted English on the transcript, because that's not a fair representation of what that academic progress was. And I've been told that it's because of the system. Well, then somebody needs to look at how the system can change so that you accurately reflect what courses that student actually did take at their previous school, even though it may not fit into a course that you offer. But thank you, I'm very happy with the schools here, so thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, come forward if I've called your name.
Okay. Liz Chakis, recently retired after 28 years in the district, so I came to talk about another teacher, former teacher, who is also not with the district.
Could you please speak into the microphone? Thank you.
Nathan Page. Nathan Page is also a former employee of the district. He unfortunately passed away last month. His car went off the freeway, went off the highway, and he is not with us anymore. He was an amazing person. He, evidenced by the services for him, he had 2 services for Nathan, one up north and one down, as many as 100 to 150 people between the 2 services. He knew a lot of people and affected a lot of people. A lot of people spoke. It was very, very nice send-off. However, back at school, when a commemoration was requested for him, he was discouraged. Don't talk about it. It made me recall the Sarah Jenkins story of a few years ago when teachers wanted to speak about it, what happened to her, and they were told no, and put it under the rug, I don't know, but they were told no, so we wanted to honor him. I wanted to honor him. This is Nathan Page. He was an amazing teacher. He was a teacher of students with moderate to severe disabilities. You have to be a special kind of dedicated teacher to do that. He did go above and beyond. He met the students before school, before the designated start time and after the end time. That's an extra 10, 15 minutes each day that he did for years, and he was not compensated. That's above and beyond. Moderate severe teachers are not always allowed to, their schedules for lunch are different. They can't, because of their student schedules, the most challenging students on the campus, they kind of have to work their lunch schedule around them. So they take their lunch later, often with students in the classroom. They don't have to, but he did. So I wanted to dedicate this minute or 2 to him in his honor. I think teachers should be honored when they pass. Thank you, Jenny.
Hi, my name is Jessica Fox. I had come today to appeal to the board to take action and correct the wrongdoings performed by their staff. I will quickly share with you horrible guidance I have received, the lack of policy there is, and the dodging done to me by several departments and the lack of support systems available for parents. On October 14th, 2 days after touring the Longfellow School, I inquired via email how many spots they anticipated for their choice enrollment for 2018 for a first grader, seeing as my child now is in kindergarten. If their kindergarten was also currently full, and I wanted to know if there was any chance for enrollment in there. The next day, at 7:42 a.m., the principal for Longfellow called my cell phone directly. We spoke for 31 minutes, and she directed me to withdraw my child from Bay Park Elementary first thing today, and to text her later so she could check and let me know when my daughter's name came up as inactive. At 9:14 that morning, I withdrew my daughter from school and notified the principal, and she replied back to me. The following day, at 9:47, the Longfellow principal confirmed my daughter's status as inactive and directed me to start my email correspondences with the enrollment director, which started the beginning of a 5-day journey from hell for me. During this time of this enrollment process, over 3 business days, the enrollment director has failed to return any of my 14 calls to her office. Also during this time, the Longfield principal continued to lead me along, telling me to hang in there, and directed me in which people to include in my emails I sent, including superintendents and board members. I felt like a pawn in a game that I did not understand. I still have not had anyone return any of my calls or take the time to sit down and talk with me. I have asked for written proof of a policy from the QA, parent liaison, and the enrollment director, and they have failed to provide one at any time to me. Trying to navigate a career's worth of information, I have found PDF files and clear statements within the Choice Enrollment Department via our internet, and have been able to locate policies to disprove the 3 excuses the enrollment director has given me for not allowing my child's enrollment. Today I spoke with the Longfield principal, who said she would enroll my daughter anyways and to bring proof of residency, my SDG&E bill, and she'd meet me, my husband, and my child back at her office at 11 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, I arrived with my husband and child, and I was informed by her secretary that she would, in fact, not be returning to school at this time. It was not going to, in fact, enroll my child, but just to hang in there. She would talk to me later. I felt completely blindsided again. I attempted to reach and explain. Currently, the only chance I've had with anybody is Miss Barnes from Bay Park Elementary to sit and talk with me. Nobody here has replied to me or taken the time when my daughter meets out of school, and somebody's going to pay for this. This started with the Longfellow principal who told me to withdraw my child, the one who continues to tell parents not to enroll in their neighborhood schools, to wait till the first day and to try to barge in the system there. This needs to stop. These advice is still given to parents, and it's not fair to their families.
Okay, thank you.
Election reform should not be in secret. Instead of a public community group or board committee, Richard Barrera had John Lee Evans and the other board members appoint 2 board members to find a community partner. No input from the public about this, and I predict that Alliance San Diego will be Barrera's choice. That group is led by Andrea Guerrero. She was the principal officer for a group that got fined $16,000 for not identifying labor groups as the major donors. Citizens should demand that this process should be open to the public. It's time for term limits. It's time that people like Barrera can't stay in there forever and ever, and for unions to control everything that's going on in this district. I don't understand what the reason was that you didn't use the board bylaws in order to appoint a citizen committee or a board committee. There's a process for that in the bylaws, but John Lee Evans jumped right on board when Richard Barrera said, this is what we're going to do. And so as usual, the board members just kowtowed to Barrera and did what he told them to do. So now the citizens are kept out of the election process. John Lee Evans said right in front of the city council, if they bring this forward, we'll put it on the agenda. It was pretty tricky the way you guys did it. As District Deeds likes to say, Tricky Dick over here sort of managed to get it his way. And you know what? He uses his private email to do this work. I know that because when I pull up the public records, he uses his private emails.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to item H1, and this is our proposal to request staff to review later school start times for secondary schools. Dr. Evans and Dr. Whitehurst-Payne will present the item. Dr. Evans, you want to?
Okay. Well, just to start off, I'm going to say a little bit and then we will make a motion. The early start times for high school, currently in the district around 7:30, go against the established research on teenagers' biological clocks. So what we're doing is one of the national standards that has been set up is looking at start times of 8:30 or later for secondary schools. And this is not being looked at lightly. There are many organizations and scientific groups that have looked at this. The American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Sleep Foundation, American Psychological Association, and many others. The scientific fact is that post-puberty, there is a change in the biological clock. The circadian rhythm of teens is different than younger children, which results in it being more difficult to fall asleep earlier. Typically before 11 p.m. is very difficult. So we really need to look at the research and come up with some solutions in terms of what we can do for our students. So if you look at the first slide right here, most U.S. middle and high schools start this day too early. It's about 5 out of 6 schools start before 8:30 a.m., and this is pretty typical in the San Diego Unified School District. The the recommended time by pediatricians and sleep experts for teenagers to sleep is somewhere between 8.5 and 9.5 hours per night, which the result is that about 2 out of 3 high school students are sleep deprived, and we all know what sleep deprivation can do. So there's, you can see down below on the slide some different possibilities, and in terms of the physical effects, and in terms of cardiovascular health, weight, and so forth, physical activity. On the emotional side, in terms of depression and anxiety, and also in terms of safety and performance in school. So if we go to the next slide, we can see some of the benefits of sufficient sleep with a later start time. You know, first of all, as I mentioned, with the physical health of the students and the physical activity is improved when there is sufficient sleep. Emotional health and well-being, and we're talking about educating the whole child, and I would encourage everybody to stick around for the next item on the agenda, which has to do with educating the whole child under Vision 2020 and creating a positive environment for students at school, and this is part of it. On the safety side, what's interesting is in one district they did a study, and it showed that there was actually a reduction in teen auto accidents when there was a later start time. Because if you look at fatigued drivers, sleep-deprived drivers, there's a higher rate of accidents. And in fact, I mean, you can compare fatigued drivers to drivers who are under the influence of alcohol and drugs. So there's a safety factor there. It's pretty obvious in terms of tardiness and absences. There's a reduction of that with a later start time, and also in terms of student achievement. Now, in all the studies, it's very difficult to isolate particular variables, and particularly in terms of student achievement, there are a lot of factors that go into student achievement. But one study did show an increase, a slight increase in terms of the scores on standardized tests. But what was interesting was that there was actually more growth for the students at the lower performance level than those at the middle or at the higher level. So, the objections to this, first of all, we'll get into this, what's on the slide in a minute here, but the objections to this are, you know, well, if you just have students go to school an hour later, they're just going to stay up an hour later. And it has to do with the idea that teenagers are just disorganized and lazy and they're not going to do it. Well, the fact of the matter is the studies have shown that when the school start time is delayed by 1 hour, that there is a significant increase in the amount of additional sleep that students get, up to 1 hour more. So it actually, it doesn't go against, it goes against the idea that they're just going to stay up later. I certainly don't think now, and we can ask our high school students, but I doubt there are very many students saying, I have to start school very early tomorrow morning, so I'm going to get to bed really early tonight, so I'll be really sharp in the morning. And you can certainly see, I think if you visit a high school in first period, in terms of the basic alertness of the students is definitely a problem. So there are a lot of factors that go into this, and there's a lot of controversy in terms of changing from the status quo. I spoke with a group of high school students at one of our high schools, and they were mostly very in favor of a later start time, but it wasn't 100%. People do have different opinions about this. And that comes to the final point here, which is that any potential change to the start time is going to depend on various factors. We are not asking, and I want people here tonight to be aware, we're not asking for a district-wide mandate that start times be 8:30 or later for high school. There was an attempt in the state legislature, which was passed by the Senate but not by the Assembly, to mandate across the state later start times. Part of the problem with that is there can be a financial cost, and there wasn't any funding that was provided for that in that particular bill. But at a district level, we're saying we're not going to mandate this across the district. We want each school community, each cluster to kind of look at this issue, review the literature, and get the facts in terms of what's beneficial to students. And then if there's a consensus among the students, the parents, the teachers, and all of the stakeholders, all of the employees, that this would be beneficial to students, then that group would be able to petition to the district for the possibility of a change in the start time. Now, there are always financial considerations. The school schedules are largely set according to the bus schedules, which is why we have some schools that start very early, some in the middle, and some late, so the same drivers and the same buses can reach 2 or 3 different schools each morning. One thing that's interesting here in the San Diego Unified School District is that 15 out of the 16 comprehensive high schools have a very early start time, around 7:30. Some as early as 7:15 or 7:20, 7:40, but generally around 7:30. We have one exception, which is Kearney High School, which for 15 years has started at 8:45. Sometimes people are worried that, well, if there's a later start time, we get out later, this will interfere with extracurricular activities and athletics and so forth. And yet we have one school here which they are certainly able to participate in with the other schools in athletic competitions and other extracurricular activities. So we really want it to be each school to look at it. I listed some things here: the governance council, the wellness council, the employee groups, parents, students, all of them. It's a complicated puzzle because we are not in any budget position anytime soon to be spending extra money on transportation. So it really means, how do we work the puzzle to gradually get a few schools on a later start time? One of the interesting things here, when I was counting up, I counted maybe 3 dozen or more elementary schools, or maybe more than that, that had a very late start time at 8:30, 8:45, 9, 9:15 for some of the schools, while the high schools were starting typically, as I said, at 7:30. So this is just, again, against the biological clocks of the younger children who are used to going to bed earlier and getting up earlier, and the teens whose biological clocks are changing at that time. So it's not going to be a simple, we're going to do it right now. Those who strongly believe in this really need to go back to their clusters and their school communities. We need to look at this at the district level in terms of logistically what is possible within the existing resources. We need to provide the research and the literature to all of the groups so that they can analyze it. Again, I hope we would look at it from the point of view of what is best for the students. There's the issue that's been brought up about parents needing to get to work and what time they drop the kids off and how this would require certain changes. The fact of the matter is that no school day is in line with parents' work days. We don't have schools that, we don't have a 9-hour school day. So whether you start early or you start late, it's very rarely going to match up with the parent's schedule, which is why we have, before school and after school programs. So there's a lot to consider here. I've thought about this for a while. I didn't bring it up before because there are always very serious budget considerations. We also do very careful planning for the year. So at the end of the summer, we made a plan for what are the goals for this year, and this was not listed as one of the goals, so this is coming basically mid-year. But we do need to begin the conversation so that we can eventually make this change if that is what the community wants. And then, of course, if there is a change that's with the consensus of the community and the agreement of the district in terms of the logistics, there needs to be sufficient time for people to be aware of it. So again, the motion here is basically to have the superintendent and staff provide some information to clusters and a means by which they can communicate with them about their desires. But we're really looking for a democratic engagement. Democracy can be very messy. It's kind of easier just to say at the top, this is what we're going to do. I personally believe that this is really the very best direction to go, and it's in the interest of students. But again, we don't want to just simply do a one-size-fits-all mandate from the top. We need to take into consideration various factors. Each school is in a little bit different situation. There are some schools that rely a lot on bus transportation, in which case there are more buses that would need to be rerouted. But if you think about it, the kids that are going on the bus, they're the ones that are really suffering. Because if you have a 7:30 start time, I haven't even checked, but I can't imagine if you're taking a long ride across the city, what time you need to catch the bus, what time you need to get up in the morning to get to the bus stop. On the other hand, there are some schools that have no or very little bus transportation to those schools, in which case it might be a little easier. In fact, it might even be, potentially be, we're talking about quality neighborhood schools. It could potentially be an incentive for going to your neighborhood school if it was offered at a time that was more in line with what is needed for the students. So we want to begin this conversation, and so again, this is the motion to request the staff to review this and to encourage the parents and teachers and others to sit down and talk about this and sort of have a timeline for when you could submit proposals and ideas to see how we can move forward with this, whether this is very soon or further out in the future. We faced a similar situation when we decided to change schools over from year-round schools to traditional schools, and there was a big cost factor there, and we couldn't do it all at once. So we were doing a few schools a year as long as we had money, and we still haven't completed that because there's still a budget factor there, but this is something that we need to begin looking at and discuss. So, you know, it's interesting, just in the last week or two, if you notice, there was a Nobel Prize in medicine for research on circadian rhythms going down to the cellular level. There is a hormone which we secrete, which is melatonin, which affects when we are able to fall asleep, and that's the change in adolescence that requires this. Now, I want to be really clear, talking about lots of different benefits and so forth. This is not a panacea. This is not a magic bullet. We still need to practice good sleep hygiene. Even with the current schedule, one of the problems is if students stay up very late on the weekend and get up late, it throws their schedule off and makes it much more difficult to get up on Monday morning. The other is electronic devices. If you take your phone to bed with you and put it under your pillow, I'm sure many do, and text all night, whether there's an early or a late start time, that's definitely going to interfere with your sleep. Even looking at what is a reasonable amount of homework that students are given. And we talk about rigor and working hard and lots of homework, but if there's so much homework that students aren't getting enough sleep, that can also be counterproductive. So there are a lot of factors to take into consideration here, but I really hope we would look at the scientific evidence and then find how that fits for here. There was an example given recently about another district in California, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, where they had a very strong process of involving all the stakeholders and talking about it, and actually came up to an agreement with an earlier start time. So I think that's what I hope we'd be able to do here in Sandy Unified. So that is my motion. And
John, could you please just restate your motion, just so we're clear?
Yeah, it's okay. What the motion is to request the staff to provide information to clusters, to give them information and literature, the scientific literature on early start times, information about pros and cons, logistical issues in terms of how this would be implemented, the process by which they need to make this request, because even if they make the request, it's not automatic. So that the motion is for the district staff to facilitate a way for each cluster to come up with a proposal. But just a comment here, that's not the motion.
But that's the motion.
That's the motion.
Yes.
And the comment is just that it's really putting it on the shoulders of the local communities and clusters to move this forward.
And do we have a second?
I second this motion.
Do you want to clarify the motion?
I just would like to.
Well, we've got speakers, so we can have a discussion in a second.
Okay. That's fine.
I'll third the motion.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we have, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. We have several speakers on this item, so we're going to limit comments to 1 minute apiece. So as I call your name, please come forward. Alexis Leitner, Ben Leitner, Remy McWhorter, David Peters, and Mariah Bond. 1 minute. 1 minute each. Yeah. If I've called your name, go ahead and please come forward.
Hi, my name is David Peters. I'm a licensed psychotherapist in San Diego, and in my practice, I teach my clients about taking care of their brain. The brain, the seat of decision-making, impulse control, and learning. The evidence is clear from science that we have to protect the brain from drug abuse and alcohol abuse, impacts to the head, lack of exercise, exposure to porn, and we have to protect the brain by giving it sufficient sleep. As Mr. Evans has reviewed, the evidence shows that the circadian rhythm of the adolescent brain runs 2 hours later than that of an adult, and we can take that into account. And with that, we know we cannot ignore the evidence on sleep any more than we could ignore the evidence on drug abuse. This is a medical issue, a mental health issue. And so even though there may be some political reasons to be cautious and hold back on this idea, I think if we focus on the benefits to the mental health, the emotional health, the brain health of our students, this becomes an easy decision make. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mariah Bond, and as a parent and a physician in San Diego, I want to thank the board for addressing this issue. Recent studies have shown that sleep is imperative to our health, as important as a healthy diet and regular exercise. We're knowingly sleep depriving our kids when we demand that they be at school at 7:30 or earlier. And to put it in perspective, the state average high school start time is 8:07 a.m. So not only are we not following the CDC recommendations, we are taking early start times to the extreme. We're one of the earliest districts in the state. And this change may be inconvenient for some of the people who care for the children, be it parents, teachers, bus schedulers, whatever it may be. But science has brought this inconvenient truth to our attention. And there are many people who are out there marching for science for whatever reason, but for some reason we turn our backs to the science of sleep. And it's imperative that we protect our students' health, and that's in your hands as our board. And I just want to offer the support of Start School Later San Diego with our resources to help this change.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brevin McWhorter. I'm in the 7th grade at Maryland's Middle School, and I think school should start later because people can't stay or go to sleep at night. Some people like me have sports that end late at night, and some people still have to finish homework before school, and other people have to take medications during school that help focus, that can help them focus during school, but it might make them stay awake more at night. So if I can get more sleep in the morning, then I can focus better during school, and it can also help me finish or study for a test in the morning.
Good job. Thank you, Ronnie. Okay, Hannah McNeil, Beth McNeil, Ashley Lowe, Anoop Karapat, Divya Kakaya, Cameron Rakes.
Hi, my name is Hannah McNeil. I'm in the 8th grade. I have the honor of being a peer tutor at my middle school, which means I work with kids who have a difficulty learning. I would like to tell you about one student who is like many others, but he is near and dear to my heart because I have known him since I was 7. Every morning he comes into class and puts his head down on the table and falls asleep. Students with learning disabilities need all the help they can get, and these start times cause them harm. Please start school later.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Dr. Beth McNeil. As a medical sociologist, I would like you to know that early school start times are doing great harm to the teens in this district. Sleep deprivation is exacerbating the effects of social and economic inequality. Inequality is created by bad practices and bad policies, and this is one of them. Those kids who work jobs until late at night, those kids who have to get on the bus at 6 a.m., kids who don't get 3 nutritious meals a day and don't have regular access to medical care are harmed the most by early school start times. Sleep deprivation due to early school start times impacts these kids the most. It is imperative that we prepare every kid for the future. To not change start times will be to deliberately harm them. Please vote to start this process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the chance to speak at the meeting today about later school start times. My name is Ashley Lowe, and I am currently the senior class president at Scripps Ranch High School, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the students that I represent. With mounting pressure from academic competition and rigorous college admissions, we face a lot of pressure. We're taking multiple AP classes. We're holding part-time jobs and internships. We're participating in after-school sports. Our schedules are full, and what we need is more sleep and more rest. By avoiding school start times that are too early in the morning, we will have more energy and be able to be more focused during the school day. That is why I'm in support of later school start times. Thank you.
Good job.
Hello, my name is Cameron Rikes, and I attend Wahua High School, and I'm a 9th grader. My whole life, I've always been a straight-A student, and I got a 98 in Spanish in the 7th grade. However, in the 8th and 9th grade, ever since my Spanish period has been moved up to earlier periods, I've been struggling to get a B, because I can't learn a foreign language at 7:45 in the morning. It is, I honestly don't understand how you can expect me to do something like that when I also have to attend cross-country that goes all the way until 5:30 p.m., and it becomes too scrunched for time, and it's very difficult, and I really think we need later start times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Anup Keripot. I'm here representing as a parent, and also I'm the president of the California Sleep Society. I'm also the president of the San Diego Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatrists. So I practice child psychiatry, mental health issues, and also as a pediatric sleep medicine specialist here in this county. There is enough scientific evidence to say that sleep deprivation or lack of sleep is a big public health issue. In fact, the #1 cause of problems in children are insufficient sleep. The biggest complaint that they come in is that they don't get enough sleep. They're requested to have 8 hours of sleep, but they roughly get 6 hours because of homework, social issues, and other needs of the school. Even changing the hour by 1 would make a huge difference in the quality of life of the citizens that we are growing them to be. This would be one public health change that we can make that would make a better future for most of our kids. I do want to say that 2 days of sleep deprivation is as good as 0.08 of alcohol intoxication. So there is a huge impairment if they don't sleep well. So for public health and quality of life, I do think this will make a huge impact. Thank you.
So everybody's been so articulate about the need for extra sleep for our teens and our middle schoolers. I thank Mr. Evans for a very comprehensive piece you gave us. The most important place I come from as a psychologist as well as a neuroscientist who's been practicing in this community for 30 years is I see our teens suffering. I see prescriptions for ADHD medications that are skyrocketing because, we're putting meds in our kids in order to keep them alert. And consequently, what's happening is we have a tremendous amount of damage to the brain that's occurring during those critical time periods, which is the adolescence. The time of adolescence is when the brain is doing its most amount of pruning, and by depriving our teens of this essential rejuvenating part of the brain, which is the sleep cycle, we're really doing a disservice to our teens. So I would really urge for us to move forward with these later start times, and we will do whatever it takes. As parents and kids, we're going to do whatever it takes to give you guys the data so you can push that forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Stacy O'Neill, Griffin Seufert, Jen Marcassini, Jen Felix, Amy Lansky, Maria Constantine, Derek Berner, Catherine Mahoney, and Brian Sack.
Hi, my name is Griffin Seufert. I'm a senior at Scripps Ranch High School, and I just want to say that I'm tired. I'm tired all the time. This desk, it looks better than my pillow at home. It's impossible in school to keep my head from just dipping down and just not being able to be fully interactive with the lesson that I'm trying to learn, no matter how interesting it is. You know, I do theater, so I'm at school until 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, until like we go really late sometimes, and that leaves so little time for me to do homework too, and then I'm up till at least 11 each night, and it's really hard for me to get that little amount of sleep. Like, I wake up at around 6 a.m. every morning, I take my sister to school, and then maybe sometimes I'll even take like a short nap in my car just to get a little bit of extra rest before I start my day. And it's really hard to have been doing that for 4 years straight. It's just difficult as a student to be expected to perform at a high level while you're sleep deprived almost all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Howdy, I'm Jen Marcazzini, and I don't have an MD or a PhD, but I do have an MOM, that's Master of Mamahood. I am also the president of Marshall Middle School and the chair of our Scripps Ranch Schools Committee. I had the opportunity to observe a math class yesterday morning. Here was the question. If you bike at a speed of 18 miles per hour and let your friend have a 3-mile head start, and your friend bikes 12 miles per hour, how long will it take you to catch up with him? Kevin, I know you're a math whiz. The 2 classes before 8:45, 5 out of 65 kids got it right. The classes after 8:45, 46 out of 65 kids got it right. That let us know exactly what everyone's saying. These kids are asleep for the first 2 hours of their class time. So let them start it later. If you vote, your vote today will give me the green light as the chair for your Scripps Ranch Schools Committee to lead this discussion and bring it back to our parents and ultimately place our children's education on a healthier and more successful path. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Jen Felix, and I'm the mother of my daughters. They're a Challenger middle school student, and their start time is 7:15 a.m. I wanted to thank Mr. Evans for this motion. I really appreciate it, and make an additional point, just because right now most of my daughter's homework is available only online, and she must be in front of a computer screen for hours of work most nights. So this is the second year she has a Chromebook. And instead of pencils and books now, there's more bright computer screen time, and he was talking about the circadian rhythm, and there's disruption from the blue light of electronics. So this is further diminishing healthy sleep. So just in general, I think compared to years past, the current reality is our kids are given large burdens of homework, they engage in more screen time, and they're increasingly stressed out. So our students really, really need to be given an opportunity to get adequate sleep, to recover, and to feel well. So, and she's on track for Mira Mesa High School, which starts at 7:30, so this issue really affects our lives. That's going to be a total of 7 years of sleep deprivation if you guys don't act, so I'm asking you, please do what it takes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stacy O'Neill, and I'm from the Mission Bay cluster. I'm a mother of 3, and I have one child at each school in the cluster, elementary, middle, and high school. I have a master's degree in health education, and I came up here to speak from that point of view, but I would say that Dr. Evans covered every talking point that there is. And so what I wanted to say is that I know a lot of schools have already tried to do this, a few in San Diego Unified, and have gotten a lot of pushback. So I would think that coming from a district level, top down, would actually be more beneficial. It would make it more equitable, because if we just do a few schools at a time, how are you going to decide which school gets it? It's kind of like who's going to get the healthy lunch and who's not going to get it. So I would say, at least I hope that you have some resources where you can help us to implement this new program if you decide to go further with it, because you see how important it is as a public health issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Amy Lansky. I'm a teacher in San Diego Unified. I'm also a parent, and I just want to second what Stacy said, because La Jolla Cluster, I've been involved in this for over 3 years. We've attempted this. We've met with Jean Robinson. We've met with Julie Martell, and we have our hands tied. Whether it's a position from SDEA or whatever, we could not get this pushed through. So I think it needs to start with you guys. The clusters are ahead of you. You've heard from Mission Bay Cluster. You've heard from La Jolla Cluster. You've heard from Scripps Ranch. This isn't about educating the clusters. I really feel we are one step ahead of you. So thank you, Mr. Evans and Ms. Sharon Whitehurst-Payne, for introducing this tonight and getting the ball rolling at San Diego Unified District level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Catherine Mahoney. I'm a mother of 2 sons in the San Diego Unified School District. I won't repeat any of the wonderful research you've already shared. I'll just share my own experience with my 2 sons. I have sons who have a hard time falling asleep before 11 p.m. at night. You could say it's personality. I know them a little bit better than that. I moved one of my sons to a school that had a later start time from 7:45 to 9 a.m., and I saw significant improvements in not only his academics, but his mood and his personality. My other son didn't have the option of changing schools for a later start time. He's gone from 7:45 to 7:15, and now 7:25 at Mira Mesa High School. He's still struggling with his sleep, with his sports and everything else, and as he's trying to get through his Spanish lesson, he's struggling with the screen in front of him. So please encourage the schools. Please consider a broader picture of the district level of raising the start times. I know that my sons will probably be out of the school by then, but I want this for every child, every student, forever. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Sack, and I have 2 teenagers that are in the UC area, and I really don't need any studies to tell my story. I've got a daughter who is a junior in high school, and she's not playing any sports or anything because she can't, because she got an F in her freshman year and her sophomore year. And I told her that she's got to figure it out for her junior year. So she's just going to school and not doing any sports or any curricular activity, not band and not choir, and I think that's sad. She got an F, and in summer school, when she retook those classes, she got A's. So it's not that she's unintelligent, and she gets A's in her other classes. So that's the sad part of this whole thing. So we need action and stop talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Derek Berner, President of the San Diego Unified Council of PTAs. I applaud the board for entertaining this possible change to school start times for high schools and hopefully eventually middle schools. The research is clear that later school start times improve the health, safety, and academic success of students. Both the national and California state PTAs have endorsed these later start times, and the state PTA endorsed Senate Bill 328. We hope it will come back in the next leg session. Obviously, this type of change would be big for many communities. It'll take some time to get used to, but our focus needs to be what is best for our kids. Many districts throughout this country already made this change, some of them decades ago. It's time for San Diego and California to follow suit and do what's better for our kids. It may not be ideal for teachers, may not be ideal for staff, and sometimes even parents, but the students deserve to be given every tool available to help them succeed in their adolescence. It's an easy decision. Busing does not dictate this decision. It is nothing but an excuse. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Paige Hartung, Nicole Black, and Ian Foster. Are any of you here? Right here. Okay, great. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity here. Thank you, Mr. Evans, for bringing this up. I thought you summarized it all extraordinarily well. I get the argument for starting earlier. I certainly see why it's more convenient for parents. I understand why it's more helpful for sports earlier in the day. But my primary concern as a parent is my kid's education. And as far as education is concerned, I think it's a disaster to start so early. I have two kids in middle school. 2 years ago, we went to an early start, and my experience since then has mirrored the science. My kids are tired all the time. They look forward to the weekends for a totally different reason than I look forward to the weekends when I was a kid. I look forward to the weekends so I could watch Saturday morning cartoons. My kids look forward to the weekends so they can sleep till 8. It's been very interesting seeing that. I think most telling is both my kids tell me that they just pray that they don't have math during the first 2 hours of the morning. They tell me they just can't process the math problems at that time of the day with so little sleep. I think the last thing I'd like to say is I'd really like to see the board take more leadership on this and not just pass it down to the school districts, or sorry, to the clusters. I wish the board would take control of that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Board comments, discussion. Yeah, we'll start with Diego. Yeah, thank you.
Hi. Is this working? Yeah, it is. Okay, so I go to Kearney High School, and my school does start at 8:45. I have nothing but good things to say about the starting time. I am fully aware it's 8:30. I'm ready to go, and I just could not imagine having to be at school at 7:15 and then go do cross-country practice later and then do homework. It's just, I couldn't even imagine how I would manage my day that way. I do agree with Mr. Evans that the later start time is not going to do like giant wonders and stuff, but I think it'll be incredibly beneficial for our students and their health.
Thank you.
Diego, but you've been at Kearney, and Kearney has had this for about 15 years, so you haven't been there for 15 years. But I'm just curious, did you go to middle school here in San Diego?
Yes, I went to Innovation Middle School, and we did start at 7:30.
So you saw a difference?
I did see a difference. I had, during middle school, I had a math first period, and it was just impossible. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Diego, how was the first day of school when you met the board president and I at Kearney at 5 a.m.?
Oh, yeah. That was an interesting day.
As the Kearney ASB president, you met us, I think you were there, you had to be up at 3:30 a.m. that day to meet us for the media events, and so that day probably felt very different to you than your normal day at Kearney.
Yeah, it was very long.
Thanks for being there with us that day.
Vina, yes.
Hello, my name is Vina Duprat, and I'm a senior at Patrick Henry High School, and I would just like to share my experience of having late starts on Monday and going to school early from Tuesdays to Fridays. So my school actually has late starts at 8:30 to 2:20 p.m. and on Tuesdays to Fridays we go to school early like everyone else between 7:30 to 2:30, and I'm actually a student that rides the bus in the morning also. So going to school on Monday is my favorite because we get to wake up late and we get to show up at the bus stop around 7. And we get to school on time, and on Tuesdays, it sucks. I have to wake up at 5:30 and be at the bus by 6:20, and that doesn't give me much time to get ready for school or to gather my thoughts to get my day started in the morning, and I do have math first period, so it's a struggle.
Thanks. Let's start with Dr. Whitehurst-Payne.
When John asked me to second this, I was very happy. And John hasn't told the whole story. He's also in the psychology medical area, so he was able to share some of that experience. For me personally, it's almost like we've just decided as adults what's best for children without any evidence. And we finally have some evidence from the American Medical Association, from all of these entities, telling us that a later start time would help. I know there are some adults who prefer to work early, but we need to stop and think about the children and what's best for them. So that's why I was very happy to second this, because I believe that we do need to look at what they're telling us and not just be tone deaf about it. Thank you.
Vice President Beiser.
I want to thank Dr. Evans and Dr. Whitehurst-Payne for bringing this item forward on the agenda. I was thrilled to support SB 328. I wrote a letter to the governor and all the sponsors in Sacramento last month, very publicly supporting it and have been for quite some time. As a secondary math school teacher, I know firsthand when I first started teaching a long time ago, the start time was 7:20 in the morning. And then after 3 or 4 years, the school where I was teaching changed it to 8:15 in the morning. And you could tell there was a big difference in student performance and attentiveness and behavior, and academic performance also improved, which the evidence bears out. So I'm really glad that we're taking a look at this item this year. But I have to say that I was a little bit in agreement with some of the folks that said, you know, if we know it's the right thing to do, why would we only do it for some kids? But then I listened to what Dr. Evans said, and in this motion, he's not saying we're not going to do it for some schools. What he's wanting to do is to make sure that we have a robust community engagement plan so that we're hearing from the communities so that as we go forward, it doesn't preclude doing the right thing for all of our secondary schools. And just for a point of information, secondary schools are middle and high schools. So I'm thrilled to support this initiative publicly again.
Right. Likewise, I'm very pleased that this item is on the agenda, very pleased that it was initiated, and that we are now having this discussion. Hearing the supporting comments from the members of our community, both students, parents, the experts, and I've had individual meetings with people who have provided the documentation. Documentation is there, very supported, very much supported by all the major agencies and groups. So I don't think it's as much about finding new information as it is about how do we do it. So I'm thinking that's and pleased to hear our board members from our high schools sharing their experiences and very openly and very honestly, and to have these voices of all of our stakeholders is absolutely critical, and I think that's what we're doing with this motion, is to enhance the conversation, making sure we can have the plan, making sure we can have the commitment, making sure that we can not only do the right thing, but do the right thing in the right way. And so that's where I believe the motion has strength and has power, and I'm very pleased to support that, and looking forward to the conversation, looking forward to the outcome, looking forward to making the right decision when it comes before us for action.
Thank you, Dr.
I appreciate the fact that President Barrera asked me to clarify the motion, and I think, as I was thinking about it, if you look on the screen, the motion really is those 4 items for the superintendent to facilitate that by providing the information to the clusters and so forth to make this happen. Now, we've talked about the issue of how important this is and how we need to do this, and then there are also the practical issues. I remember when I first came on the board, And I saw how early some kids had to get up and get on the bus, and there was no way to change the bus schedule. So I said, why don't we just move the entire district 15 minutes later? And there was a huge uproar because the people with the later start times, instead of 9 o'clock, were going to start at 9:15, and that was going to interfere with their work and everything else. I mean, one of the realities is that we are here and we're listening to all of the people who are enthusiastically supporting it. But once you go into the communities, there are going to obviously be a lot of people who disagree and have another opinion about it, and we need to really include everybody in this. A few years ago in the UC cluster, we had a discussion about bell times, and the issue there was, could we have the elementary, middle, and high schools not so far apart in the times? We're taking kids to school, and there might even be an hour and a half difference between one school starts and another school start, which made it difficult for families. So again, there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle, that what happens in the high school affects what happens in the elementary school, and vice versa. And the financial issue is very real. I really want to do this. At the same time, I'm not going to say I want to increase the class size of kindergartners to make this happen, or take away from some of these key areas. So we need to look at how we can do this. As long as we agree that this must be done, there's sort of the, where there's a will, there's a way. We will eventually find a way to do it. But if we were able to just say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to make this school start time, there are a couple issues, and one is having robust participation of the stakeholders, but the other is it would be financially impossible that we don't have the money to turn around and do that. So we have to be very creative about how we work the schedules of the buses, working with our partners in OSS and in the transportation department, working with the principals and the teachers and everybody. And I know there were mentions about certain groups were in favor or opposed. That's the whole point of getting all the stakeholders involved, and it really needs to revolve around the issue of what is best for the children. I appreciate the fact that a couple of physicians got up and spoke. I myself am a psychologist. I do therapy. I don't prescribe medication, but one comment I was reading was, in terms of some of the sleep studies, that more physicians need to actually prescribe sleep to their patients as opposed to certain medications, that one of the big health problems is sleep deprivation. So that's another factor that we need to consider, but I appreciate everybody being here. And it's, and I was using the example of what the changes that we made in the UC cluster in terms of getting the bell times closer together. There was a very strong participating group who came to the cluster meetings, who sent out surveys and so forth, and so then there was a proposal made, okay, let's change this, and all of a sudden, when that time was announced, hundreds of people came out of the woodwork who were opposed to it. So we need to have a very informed constituency in terms of what we're doing and bring them along every step of the way. The students, parents, teachers, other employees, bus drivers, everybody, so that we can come to a consensus together.
Yeah, I want to thank Dr. Evans and Dr. Whitehurst-Payne for bringing this forward, for your leadership. I know that this is an issue that Dr. Evans has been concerned about for many years. But I also agree with Dr. McQuarrie that we're doing the right thing, but we're doing it in the right way. It's very important that we go through a process with the community. If for no other reason, then we need to give people time to catch up, who don't know the research, who aren't clear about about all the reasons that people have articulated tonight. So I think this process needs to begin. I also would say that I think it's fair to say that there's clear consensus on the board that this is the right thing to do. And so the conversation is not about whether or not to do it, whether or not to do it in some places versus others. The conversation is about how we get there. And so we look forward to the community going through that conversation. So with that, let's please vote. Okay, it passes 5-0. Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming out on this. Yeah.
Those who have kids can leave to get them to bed.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay, now we'll go back to item E1, and Ms. Donovan, do we have any issues to report out on from closed session?
We do. In closed session, the board, pursuant to their prior authority to join an amicus brief in the DACA case, authorized legal representation to be provided through my office for any district that does not have legal counsel.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Donovan. And Superintendent Martin, do we have administrative assignments to report out?
Yes, we have Program Manager for Family and Community Engagement, Maria Angela Santos. Program Manager for Visual and Performing Arts, Timothy Benson. Area Superintendent for Area 6, supporting Crawford, Henry, and Scripps Ranch Cluster, Monica Hazel.
Thank you, Superintendent. And we've already had the participation of our ASB student body presidents tonight, but at this time we'll ask you to give your formal reports. Tell us about yourself and what's going on at school, both academically and socially. And why don't we begin with our ASB president from Patrick Henry High School, Vina Duprat.
Yes, hello, my name is Vina Duprat, and so during the month of September, my school had a fundraiser. It's the senior parking auction, where we sold a spot at our school that seniors can buy and they can park there, and we raised up to $18,000, which we hope to go to prom to make prom super cheap. And between October 1st to the 31st, we have bullying prevention awareness, where a certain day of the week in October, we're going to wear purple, and we'll be passing out purple ribbons for students to wear. And every day of this week, we've been giving out bullying prevention facts over the intercom at our school. And also our homecoming is on the 28th. And the tickets are going on sale between $5 to $10, and that's consistent throughout the week until homecoming. And we had our first blood drive on October 5th, and it went really well. We had about 30 or more students volunteer. And October 23rd to the 31st is Red Ribbon Week, which we are hoping to pass out red ribbons and decorate the quad in red.
Right. Thank you, Mina. Great. Diego?
Hello. So,
Hello.
I'm the ASB president of Kearney High School, and I'm going to start off with the ASB Council. We have not had a meeting since the last board meeting, so our next meeting is October 18th, and many of our ASB presidents, just like our Patrick Henry president, are having their homecomings this month, so we're making sure supporting them with anything that we need to make sure their events go smoothly. So on to Kearney High School. So our football team continues their winning streak, 6-0, so we're very happy. Our senior night football game is...
It's all that sleep that the football players are getting.
Our senior night football game is on Friday, so we're very excited to honor our varsity football players, seniors. We had all of our homecoming celebrations this past week, this past Friday and Saturday, and I'm so thrilled to say that it was a booming success. To start off with our dance, we broke Kearney's record for the most homecoming tickets sold ever at a Kearney dance, so we're very happy about that. The dance went really smooth, and just seeing everyone's faces, enjoying the dance made my whole life. During Spirit Week, we also had a blood drive, and it is the largest blood drive Kearney has had in over 2 years. We collected 40 units that will touch the lives of over 120 people, so we're very, very happy about that. Our pep rally and football game, also homecoming pep rally and football game went really great. Something that was really incredible and the highlight of everything is we had our teachers dance the Macarena at our pep rally. That was incredible. And also our Kearney High School gym renovations are completely done, so we got new floors, new bleachers, new paint, just in time for basketball season. We're very excited. And now on to academics. So last meeting I talked to you guys about our Science, Connections, and Technology School and the teacher support and English test scores. This meeting I'll be talking to you about our engineering school. They are focused on project link learning, and they have this project for their 11th graders. They're combining the civil engineering, physics, and US history courses to face a real challenge in the city of San Diego. So our 11th graders are teaming up to repurpose an empty lot in the Liberty Station to become a veteran center. So in their history class, students will learn about the wars throughout history and understand a veteran's mental and emotional experience while reading the novel The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. Students will analyze the structural loads of the building in their physics class to understand how much force a building must resist to maintain stability. And lastly, students will create the actual floor plans with room designation in their CEA class after researching specific veteran issues and the most effective services we can provide. So I think this is an amazing opportunity for our students to showcase their abilities while still giving to the community. So throughout this whole project, they're working with Veterans Delivery Station and other industry partners. So I'm very excited for that. Thank you so much.
That's really exciting, Diego. Thank you. Yeah. Do you know, are they going to do an exhibition when it's time to present their project?
Hopefully. It's fairly starting because the year just started by Imagine.
Yeah.
So.
Well, look forward to that. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, Superintendent Information Report, Superintendent Martin.
I have a very short report. I'd just like to invite everybody to our State of the District address next Tuesday at 4:45 on the 17th at Sherman Elementary to hear all about the great district initiatives and ways to be civically engaged. We think it's more important now than ever that people show up and participate and be part of our process of the work of the district, and Board President Barrera and I are looking forward to hosting everyone and having the full board there at Sherman next week at 4:45 on the 17th.
All right, thank you, Superintendent. Board information reports, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne.
Thank you, Mr. Barrera. I have been busy, out and about, as they say, but I visited yesterday evening both the Crawford cluster and the Lincoln cluster meetings, and I've been visiting a lot of my schools to participate in their activities that they're having for the community and so forth. But I just want to report on what happened last night at the Lincoln cluster and the excitement that's being generated in that cluster. I'm glad to hear about all the positive things that you're doing and all the positive things that you're doing. And I would just like to report that we're excited because from last year, the students themselves were able to get almost $10 million in scholarships. And so that group has gone off to college. So we're working on this present group with whatever the issues are. We're working through the issues so that they can match or exceed what this past group did. And I always report on what's happening with the Rotary Club and it's Club 33, the downtown club, and the fact that the president of that club is matching the superintendent for $5 per point for the scores that they receive on the football team. And I think one game they had 66 points or something.
Yeah, we're going broke over it.
Yes, okay. For their Interact Club.
Betting on the game?
Yes, for the Interact Club. And then
that obviously wasn't against Kearney, though, because
no, they have late start times.
You guys are taking some of my time. I want to report this.
Oh, that's right, it's 2-minute limit.
I just want to report also that when I was there last night, a parent reported that her child had gone to Europe this summer as a part of the Rotary Interact program, and it turned out that she met several children from all over Europe, and one of them was from France. And now she's communicating with them, I gather, daily. I hope it's by internet or something. And they've decided that they want to come and visit her here. So the mother's looking for places for the family to come and stay with us. But we're excited about things that are happening, and there are always issues, but we're choosing to move forward in a positive direction and see if we can't correct some of the other issues. Thank you, and thank you to my cluster.
Thank you, Dr. Vice President Beiser.
Thank you, President Barrera. On Saturday, I attended Mass at the St. John the Evangelist Catholic Church here in San Diego, and it was a really important Mass because two bishops came into town for this Mass. They were celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Catholic Church decree, "Always Our Children." The Always Our Children decree from the Catholic Church was a message to all the parents in the church to love their children even though they may be LGBT. And so that was a really a very, very important anniversary, and I was honored to participate and attend. Before that, I visited Scripps Ranch High School, where I was thrilled to give an award to Master Sergeant Toledo of the JROTC at Scripps Ranch High School, who was named the JROTC Instructor of the Year for the entire United States of America out of over 4,000 JROTCs. And under Master Sergeant Toledo's leadership, support, and guidance, the JROTC for 2 years in a row won first place in Washington, D.C. at the National JROTC Academic Bowl, beating all the JROTC academic teams around the world. So that's 2 years in a row, and I'm a little bit concerned about the hat trick here, and because we want 3 in a row. And I was thrilled that of the academic team, almost all of them are going to be our juniors or seniors this year. So that's really encouraging, that a lot of those successful JROTC Academic Bowl team members were freshmen or sophomores this year and last year. So that's really, really good. Congratulations to Kearney High School, football 6-0. Sounds exciting. With that, pass it on.
Thank you, Dr. McClory.
Thank you, President Barrera. Yeah. I'm going to focus on our community and business partners and our networking, which I started the first of the year, was to identify two areas of focus. One would be our community partners. The other is connecting with our schools. So I've been, since the start of the school year, I've been to most schools, most of the clusters within our district, and I attend my usual clusters, which is Point Loma and La Jolla, Mission Bay and Kearney, and for the last couple of months I've been at Lincoln, and I just want to witness the outstanding, enthusiastic effort that's being made there with the focus on the positive and what they're looking forward to doing, not just Lincoln, but the entire cluster. And so last night they had students from their feeder school to come and perform and to share what they're doing. So just like we had today with Cubberley feeding into Kearney, the vertical alignment and the connections is what really makes for a powerful cluster, makes for a powerful district. In addition, in terms of, I've had international contacts. We've had 2 visiting delegations from China. We'll have another one coming next week to Bernard School of Asian Pacific Language Academy. We've had visitors from Japan, and I met with had lunch with a large group of people, with the ambassador from Germany, and got a sense of what they're doing there, and with an invitation to sit down and talk about a partnership between our schools and their schools. And we'll also be have an invitation to take a look at a partnership with schools in Korea. So we've had a chance to expand our effort to include connections with our students, with other students around the world, so that we truly have a global focus and a district that truly prepares our students to be effective globally and competitive. Thank you.
Dr. Evans?
Right on the buzzer.
Yeah.
I can't see the light, so don't worry about it. Something exciting happening in Claremont. The local Claremont Chamber of Commerce has really teamed up with the schools and looking for a partnership. And there was a speaker from Project Lead the Way. We saw some of those results of that today. But the idea was, how do we get the local businesses tied in with the schools and working together? And they're going to work on more collaboration, so that's really great. And then on the UC cluster, I was at a cluster meeting where one of the things that really impressed me was there are only 3 elementary schools in that particular cluster, but all 3 of those teachers are working very closely together, the 3 of them, so that they're equally preparing them for the middle school, and a lot of the focus on the K-3 literacy that we've been talking about between now and 2020. And, there are always discussions about money and budget and so forth. One of the things that happened was it was clarified that Curie was going to have still have an instrumental music program, so that they have that all the way through the cluster, that they're consistent about that. Another point, someone said, well, we have a problem. We only have a library tech 1 day a week, to which I said, well, I'd like them to be there every day, but we don't have the money. And she said, well, then just raise the taxes. Do it. And I said, okay, I'll vote on it at the next board meeting. But the reason I bring that up is we really need to do more education for people about how the whole budgeting process works, and maybe we'll hear a little bit more about this in the State of the District. But at any rate, to really understand what the budgeting process is and what we can do and how we can make the best with whatever we have. And then on October 21st in University City is going to be Oktoberfest, which is a fundraiser by the UC Foundation for Public Schools that benefits all the kids in the school.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Evans. I want to thank Sergeant Carlos Vargas from our school police department who took me on a ride-along this afternoon, and I would encourage all board members to, if you haven't had a chance to do that. Our school police officers are extraordinary, and I think it's important for us to all understand that our officers are, in fact, educators and a key part of our educational process. They've chosen to go into educational law enforcement because they want to make an impact on young people. And it was a fairly short ride along today, but I think we saw the gamut of the responsibilities that our officers take on. We attended a presentation at a 10th grade English class at Lincoln High School, where an officer who's developed an education program comes and teachers request him to come in for 15 or 20 minutes to talk about issues in the community, issues that young people have to deal with every day. And so it was very much about being proactive and working with students on the front end. And then we experienced, a difficult situation at an elementary school where these officers were just incredibly skilled at de-escalating what could have been a difficult situation. Again, we've got a lot to be proud of with our school police officers, and they've got a big job. And so any of us, if we get a chance to do a ride-along, it's something I know Superintendent Martin has done before. I'd encourage us all to do it. Okay, let's move on now to item F1, and this is our Vision 2020 Quality Schools in Every Neighborhood report, and this is a report on student voice and agency.
Thank you, President Barrera. I'm going to have a team come up and join me. We have students that are equity ambassadors, along with Stan Angen, our Executive Director of Family and Community Engagement, and Stacy Siders leading our team of equity ambassadors. And this is, as you said, it's LCAP Goal 4, and each one of these LCAP updates is aligned to, when we make our goals every year, we set out goals in the LCAP, we assign budget, and then we have a metric to measure it. And so specifically, every time you hear an LCAP update, we are going back to specific goals. So this one, 3 specific goals, we committed to actions and services that we would continue to expand this year in our LCAP, our Student Equity Coalition, so that we could address the educational inequities identified by our student equity ambassadors. We wrote that into our LCAP. We want equity ambassadors to help us identify that, so we're completing and continuing with that goal. The second goal in the LCAP was to develop student leadership skills to become equity ambassadors through participation in the Student Equity Coalition. So you'll hear about that tonight. And the third area that this item addresses is that we committed to ensuring that student voice is present in identifying the areas of advocacy and developing action-driven outcomes. And so this report presents that, and the metric that we use is our school climate survey. But tonight we're going to hear this come alive and what the story is. I have a PowerPoint. when we first launched, who has the slide? There we go. When we first launched the Student Equity Coalition, we talked about student voice and agency specifically, and this was a graphic that we used at the beginning of the Equity Coalition work, and the team's going to go into what it means to bring this alive, but specifically we looked regionally across our county, not just San Diego Unified. Where are our disconnected youth? And this is literally a pipeline that has leaks in it, and the analogy is when there's a leak in the pipeline and a student who enters in 7th grade, we have almost 40,000 students entering in 7th grade in the county, and where are the points along their pathway between age 16 and 23 where they become disconnected? They're not in school, they're not working, what are they doing? And when we talk about being a contributing member of society, where are there places along the way where we're losing students? So, and you can see what happens, that students who don't graduate high school in 4 or 5 years, and they're a non-high school graduate in the region, 7,600 students, average income you can see there is $18,000. Or you have students who enrolled in post-secondary education, 21,000 students, nearly 22,000 enroll, versus non-enrolled, 10,000 don't enroll, and what happens when they don't enroll in post-secondary education. So we're identifying places along the pipeline, and we're leveraging networks and relationships regionally with our internal stakeholders, external partners who attend our Equity Coalition, and we want student voice to lead this and say, what are the reasons why you may become disconnected? Where there's a leak in the pipeline, how do we plug that leak and make changes? And you can see what the outcomes are. And this is, we believe as a district, we're leading a citywide conversation on that. And specifically today, we're going to hear about voice and agency as one of the ways that we keep our youth connected so they can become contributing members and not be one of the ones that will change the outcomes basically of what this pipeline is addressing. So let's hear about student voice and agency, because we know engaged students are students who continue to participate and they don't drop out or make decisions that are not effective for our community.
So good afternoon, or good evening. We're excited to be here today, but echoing what our Superintendent Martin was saying, last year in an effort to expand our opportunities in which we engaged educators, parents, community partners to take collective action, we launched this coalition with the focus of addressing and tackling equity issues that were brought to us by our students. We believed that if we brought all parties together and created a network of equity champions, we could and would continue to bridge the equity gaps and barriers that were impacting our students from all being college and career ready. As we moved into the work last year, we were really excited that at the end of it, we had engaged 340 stakeholders that included district leadership, our community partners, our students, our parents, and our school administrators, and in having these real live dialogues around issues that our students brought to us. We held them at 5 different high schools across the district, and it was a very beautiful coalition of people from diverse communities coming together to take action on one specific item. And as we developed the work, we continued to refine it, but the issues were issues that our students knew needed to be shifted, and we needed to have a much greater collective impact. And so each stakeholder group was given the opportunity to own the ways in which we could change the outcomes for our students. So as we have heard, our students did select the topics last year, and the selected topics were unity and involvement, quality instruction and opportunities and access to resources, safe school climates, students' beliefs and perception on assessments, part 1 and a part 2. Again, in that belief of refining our work, we began to see that our students wanted to dive into, and our community members wanted to dive into these issues at a much greater depth. And so we began to look at what this would look like when we have multiple opportunities, not only to develop action plans, but as a community, really look at long-term outcomes and changes within our system that would have the greatest impact. The Equity Coalition outcomes for last year were that in our lift of safe school climates, we built strong partnerships with the Mexican consulate and ICE, as well as the Border Patrol, due to the issues that the students were raising. Their voices are what lifted a greater and much larger piece of work across this district that was in support of our undocumented communities and families. Our student equity ambassadors were able to and were invited to attend and be a part of the USD Safe School Climate Symposium for educators and community, where their voices were heard by many educators across this county, and allowed other school districts the opportunities to start developing some action items in which they would begin to start developing plans to make sure that their students were safe as well. And then we also were invited to attend the USD Restoring Respect 6th Annual Conference, where our equity ambassadors, as well as our ASB Council, were invited to engage in the community at a much larger level, in which their voices started to shift the way we were thinking about community safety for our students across this county. When it came to the students' beliefs and perceptions of assessment, we were able to review stakeholder information, and that information really sparked large conversations in our instructional cabinet around the issues that our students brought up. And we'll be hearing a little bit more about that from the voices of our students. But ultimately, what that has led to is that we have really taken this effort and developed a strong plan to support students from an instructional lens that was brought to us by our students, where they identified issues around relationships and issues that had to do with outcomes, strong and clear understanding of goals, that has shifted our way in thinking about how we look at our school system K-12. And as we look at the two equity issues that, as we look at this upcoming year, our equity coalition really has been evolving, and we're excited about that. And so taking the format that we had last year towards the end of the year, we'll be looking at identifying and recruiting more stakeholders, identifying more partners and parents. And so we are currently recruiting parents and community partners to join us, as well as addressing two equity issues this year, but going again in that much more deep, moving in a more deep dive to ensure that we have strong outcomes and that we can gauge the impact on a larger level.
Thank you, Stan. As we work to strengthen the development and the expansion of the student voice, and as we built the student equity ambassadors, it was our goal to empower the voice of the students who needed to be reconnected, and it was our goal to listen to the students who are connected and the reasons why. And we continuously are working to add the voice of the students who have fallen out of the pipeline, as Superintendent Martin mentioned. So we continue to strive towards that, and last year we ended the school year with 30 student equity ambassadors representing 17 schools, and this year we are starting the school year with 50 students representing 23 schools, but we are still growing, which is why the plus is included on the PowerPoint slide. Another student group that we are working to expand their student voice and agency is our Council of ASB Presidents, and our goal is to build their all-inclusive leadership voice, and we are very proud that within the last year we have expanded to the atypical high school ASB presidents, and so now they are a regular part of our council and join you up here alternating each month. And our focus always continues to be working on strengthening campus climate and culture, and it is our goal to strengthen our students' ability to build and value the relationships on their campuses. And then as we move to the next one, a little more information. First, a little more information about our student equity ambassadors. Their purpose is giving youth a voice towards change, and a little bit of history to share with you. Student selection began with student nomination of other students, and the students were looking for other students on their campus who were in need of resources or support, who were passionate about wanting to advocate for other students and or desired being a part of positive change. After initial student nominations and referrals, we worked with school site staff to continue to identify students who represented their schools and communities were reflective of those students and would benefit from this opportunity. And additionally, we welcomed and continue to welcome self-nominations of students. And we invite all of these students to join us, and ultimately it is up to them whether they accept the invitation or not. And as Stan mentioned, the students decide the topics. So last year, the students discussed issues or concerns they felt they saw on their campuses, and they discussed them among one another and found some district-wide commonalities that became the focus, and we will follow that same process this year. One next step that we are very excited to share with you this year is our Council of ASB Presidents and Student Equity Ambassadors collaboration with Nursing and Wellness, LGBTQIA, and Counseling and Guidance. We shared a flyer with you for an event that is happening next week, and it is open to all secondary students. It's next Thursday after school, and our goal is to inform students of opportunities for their voice to be heard on district initiatives and bring them to the table. You've heard the word a lot, Student Equity Ambassador Program. So our students meet and train on the alternate months aside from the coalitions. They also participate in other opportunities such as student panels at local colleges and workforce partnership events. So they are wonderful representatives for all kinds of different events. And our Office of Secondary Schools, which we often refer to as OSS, will continue supporting students with public speaking exercises and tips. And under the wonderful leadership of our Director of Reconnection, Mia Funk, she coaches us on data analysis, and we look at things like the check survey data, and we discuss it, and she helps us as the students to learn how to do that. And we will also support them with job skill preparation as well as practice preparing for meaningful interaction. So that's our number one goal as we come to these coalitions, or as we train for the coalition, so that the students are ready and prepared. So now to the best part. I am so excited to introduce some of the Student Equity Ambassadors who we have here with us tonight. First and foremost, I would like to introduce Salu Jai from John Muir. I asked Salu to share with us what it means to him to be a Student Equity Ambassador.
Thank you. To me, being a student equity ambassador allows the opportunity to express difficulties commonly seen in my school with other student leaders who seek positive change in our schools. I get to be amongst the first to create a system in which students can have a voice in the future and functioning of their schools. Through this position, schools throughout the district will finally be able to be heard after years of schools like mine being left under the radar.
Thank you, Salu. Next up, I would like to introduce Gemma Samoy from Kearney High School. I asked Gemma to please share with us why she believes the Student Equity Ambassadors are important.
Hello, I really believe that Student Equity Ambassadors is important because, in a sense, the Student Equity Ambassador program is a reflection of the idea of government by the people for the people. It is empowering to students because it shows that the education system cares about what we have to say, and that's so important, particularly in a time that has been characterized by a gap between students and educators.
Thank you very much. And then next up, I would like to introduce Kyle Modesit from John Muir. And I asked Kyle to please share one of his hopes for this year's program.
Thank you. For this year's Student Equity Coalitions, I hope we get more school staff and parents to come, as I believe they would be a great addition to the conversations we have, and they would be an amazing voice to add when brainstorming how we are going to change the issues at hand.
Thank you very much. Then up here on the dais with us, we have Johnny Nguyen from Madison High School, and I asked Johnny to please share his favorite experience so far.
Before I answer the question, I just want to thank Madison High School for supporting my endeavors as a student equity ambassador. Madison ASB and the Madison staff overall was really supportive in my pursuit of Student Equity Coalition. And so my favorite part of the Student Equity Coalition was the fact that I got to speak at the University of San Diego Safe School Climate Symposium back in January, and it was an unbelievable experience because I spoke alongside Diego in front of a crowd of of people who were so incredibly engaged with what youth had to say. And it was a testament to the fact that youth voice is in fact very important in every conversation that we have. And so after the student panel, every single person in the room gave us a standing ovation. And so it was a truly memorable and empowering experience. And it was after this conference that I knew that this was what I really wanted to keep pursuing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johnny. And then lastly, we have Maya Selmay from San Diego High School. And I asked Maya to kind of summarize her thoughts of the whole program just to wrap everything up for us.
Thank you, Stacy. So overall for me, I feel that being a student equity ambassador really means being able to expand my vision of access availability across the district and really to most effectively unite my passion for mental health advocacy with an empathic, contextualized infrastructure built on student support. So the student equity ambassadors are important not just because the emphasis is on institutional change, but on also a reform of our shared creativity. So it's not top-down or bottom-up change, it's horizontal. And so we all get to enjoy the sunrise and the sunset. And so this year I'd like to diagnose and consolidate our progress on the assessments that we've done last year, and then move on to making wellness centers like the one at my school, San Diego High School, available on as many school sites as possible to foster more dynamic and centered school community.
Thank you all very much. Our second and final student group that we are going to talk a little bit about is our Council of ASB Presidents, whose purpose is to strengthen the operations of our ASB organizations at our school sites and provide a channel of communication with district administration and our Board of Education. A little bit of history, there's an administrative procedure on the Council of ASB Presidents, which we have learned a lot about, that dates back to 1972, so it makes you wonder. We are very proud of our progress as we have strengthened support for our middle school and high school ASB programs and increased student support for district initiatives such as anti-bullying and health and wellness and our big kickoff event next week. I will let Diego talk to us a little more later about some of the next steps we're looking for this year. And we'll do one more, yes, please. And so this Council of ASB Presidents meets once a month at the district office, and you'll be very excited to know that the group, after they met for the first time in September, stayed for an additional 2 hours just to get to know each other, share best practices, and there was a buzz about the beginning of the year. There was an excitement in that room, so I think we have a very special group this year. The students create the agenda, they run the meeting, and as you see here, as Vina is the example, they alternate each month serving as a student representative to the board, and we are proud that our high school organized ASBs are all represented now with you throughout the year. And our Office of Secondary Schools will continue support with things like leadership training, resource creation, sharing of best practices, and I think you guys are familiar that the ASB world is a little complex, so our office works very closely with district finance, internal audit, strategic sourcing and contracts, and whoever we can to support our sites and help them with the great work that they are doing. So with that, I will turn it over to reintroduce Diego Robles, who was elected our council president for this year. And I asked him to prepare a few thoughts. And the first one, I had asked, could you share a little background with us as to why you ran for president of the council? Oops.
All right, so I ran for council president because I have been involved with ASB for a few years, and it has been what I love to do. I swear there isn't a time I'm not thinking about ASB and how to give students a way to make numerous memories that extend outside the classroom. So I saw this as an opportunity as both a learning experience from all the ASB presidents, but also a way to share what I've learned throughout the years and help the ASB presidents as they need. I believe it's all about building on each other's ideas for truly wonderful outcomes, so I'm really excited.
Thank you. And we really want to know how the council plans to support our student equity ambassadors this year.
All right, so actually the student equity ambassadors hold a really special place in my heart. I was so lucky to be one of the first student equity ambassadors, and it really opened my eyes to the issues going
about in schools, and every time after a meeting, I came back to my school and I was so thankful for all my staff and all the students, everyone who created such a nice environment for me to learn. So it holds a really special place in my heart, definitely. So the Council of ASB Presidents will support the Student Equity Ambassadors by further promoting the equity meetings, inviting students, community, parents, and teachers, making them aware of the incredible program that I really got to enjoy and love this past year.
Thank you. And the last question, what do you hope to accomplish this year with the Council of ASB Presidents? What are some of your goals?
All right, so this year I hope to create more unity within our schools. This council, to me, it represents kind of like a puzzle. We all have something to contribute, and we put our little piece, and it makes such big outcomes. So by having this council, we create a support system for all the ASB presidents. We share our successes, and most importantly, share our mistakes and how we learn from them. I want our ASB presidents to discuss important issues happening in our schools and bring the conversations to their school to spread awareness. Some of these topics include the LGBTQ inclusivity, the importance of speaking out about bullying, student-teacher connections, and ways to make sure that all of those students feel included inside and out of the classroom.
Thank you, Diego. That concludes our presentation. We are so thankful for the opportunity to be here. This was an incredible experience for us, so thank you very much.
I like the look of that board in the picture. Maybe they could take our place at the next meeting.
We've got one speaker, and then we'll have board discussion. Francine Maxwell. Francine, you have 3 minutes.
Positive school environment, climate, and culture with equity at the core, support for the whole child. Positive school environment. I'm positive that at Lincoln, first period prep English teachers don't come to school on time to have a first period prep. We have taken pictures. I promised this board that this year we were going to be more and do our due diligence. And so we've taken pictures of teachers driving their white BMWs on Imperial at 7:40 in the morning for their first period prep when school starts earlier than that. At Morris, the sixth period teachers are leaving for their prep. So they're stealing. Their time cards are saying one thing and they're stealing. So at Lincoln, you have them leaving at first, not coming to work first period. Morris, you have them down the street leaving for sixth period prep, so they leave at the end of fifth period. We have 2 area soups. So you tell me who's running the school if their boss isn't telling them to check up on their schools. I have a problem with all the fighting. We know that there's normal fighting. Children are children. But due to the fact that we have placement and appeals that don't understand, we did a major shift change because of our budget. We have students register at Morris that are supposed to be at Alba. You're supposed to, when you get suspended, you're supposed to spend at least a semester at Alba. They're at Morris causing havoc, threatening teachers. Teachers can't teach. Students that want to learn, they can't learn. Where are the supervisors? I only know of one supervisor that the Board of Trustees have, that you were elected. This superintendent has negligence of her supervision because the area soups have a breach of their mandatory duties. So I want us to be careful as we're heading toward 2020 that we're not having honest conversations and dialogue. Like I said, there's a liability issue. Because I can prove we want everyone to come to their neighborhood school, yes. But if they're not supposed to be there per the ed code, there's a liability issue. The cafeteria is closed at Morris some days because of the danger. I want everybody to be safe. There's 3 brand new women administrators. I took pictures, someone sent me a picture today that the former principal was on the campus walking around the quad. So could that person be surveying what needs to be happened as far as supervision? No. The 3 new administrators need support. They need to be pushed on what to do. I hold the counselors at Morris High School responsible for all the fighting and all the children that aren't supposed to be on our campus. Some of them are supposed to be at Alba, some of them should be at Garfield. We have elementary counselors. So why isn't the district sending 6 extra counselors to Morris to clean it up? I have a senior that's never taken biology. So for us to say positive school environment, we have a lot of work to do. Equity, core, support for the whole child, we have work to do.
Okay, board members, questions or thoughts on the presentation? Dr. McCory, did you want to start?
I think the open and honest conversation about what's happening in our schools and our district is absolutely important. To have the student voice is critical. And what I see with this program is that opportunity to provide students with the voice and the training to have their voices heard. And I think we have the obligation to hear that voice and to make sure that our students know that their issues and their concerns are our issues and our concerns. And I think the Student Ambassador Program allows us to expand that leadership from just ASB, but to a broader group of students. So I do see it as putting into place the civil learning resolution that we passed a year ago, which was to enhance civic learning within our schools. This is the opportunity for that to take place, to happen, to give our students real leadership role and become an active, meaningful partners in helping us make these decisions. So thank you very much, Stacy and Anjan and the Office of Secondary Schools for making this happen.
Thank you. Dr. Evans?
Yeah. I noticed on one factor you have in terms of working on the perception of the schools, and one thing that I'm thinking there's a lot that can be done in this area with our high schools is a specific suggestion, but I think it's sort of broader than that, which is, I mean, we have all these broadcasting facilities and filming and so forth at some of our high schools. We could be making wonderful videos promoting each of the high schools, and on the whole theme of equity, I mean, we could really demonstrate on there the inclusion of all types of students and situations. Excuse me. I remember a couple days ago I was talking to a parent of a young student at Whittier, and she was talking about the circle of friends at Claremont High School and just how great that was for her daughter. And so, I mean, but we have to get the story out, and I think that if each school was doing that, and then if we look at the clusters, the high school students obviously could promote the middle schools and the elementary schools that are going into it, but again, on the whole theme of equity and inclusiveness, which really could be a great demonstration to adults. I mean, I'm sure a lot of, excuse me, I'm sure a lot of adults have doubts about the value of inclusion and complete integration of all types of students from all types of backgrounds and all types of skills and everything else. And I don't think there's anybody better to convince them of that than the students. And then, not to press on the theme too much of early start times, but I think it's a great opportunity for the Council of ASB Presidents and Equity Ambassadors and so forth to look at this, whatever your opinion is. I mean, there may be some that are completely opposed to it, but we've said we want to reach out to all the stakeholders, but I think the stakeholders can reach out, and so rather than waiting for someone to come and ask the students and poll the students about what's going on, you can take a proactive stance yourself, and whether that involves finding out what your students want, whether it involves convincing parents, convincing teachers. I just think you would have a very, very powerful voice to have it go whichever way you want.
Thank you. Dr. Whitehurst-Payne.
I must commend this group already, because last year I met with all the ASB presidents and kind of gave them a heads up on what to expect when they come to the board meetings, and the fact that we would be doing layoffs, and just kind of help to prepare them for participating in this process. And although I've not met with them, but I sense a more mature group here. You're already on board, you know what to expect, and I commend you for coming on board and just taking it on as an issue. I just want to say, putting on the other hat as the audit committee, that one of the things that we've really been talking about in the audit committee meetings is that ASBs need to really monitor what's going on with your finances, to go through some training. And I understand the finance department has put some training sessions on the web and put on some workshops so that you will know the procedure, how to go through it to help the district to stay straight, if you will, in our finances, so that when we do audits, we'll get good reports, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkins. Vice President Beiser.
No, I think it's fantastic. Great job, kids.
Great. So, thank you. So, I think the creation of the student equity ambassadors and the kind of elevation of the role of the ASB Council, it's important for us to kind of remember why we're doing this as a district. And so the superintendent laid out, this chart at the beginning, which basically talks about the pathway that students take as they go through our school system, and then as they leave our school system, hopefully graduate and move on to higher education, and that, the further along that students get, the more likely they're going to be successful, in their lives moving forward. But what we know to be true is that these pathways are interrupted by lack of equity. So that students, because of race, because of gender, because of poverty, because students are LGBTQIA, for a number of reasons, some students get thrown off these pathways because of these factors. But we've known that for the history of this country. And I think what the superintendent did is to say, adults have been arguing about the issues that contribute to inequitable practices that limit the lives of students. And so what we want to do is we want to ask students to take the lead. And we want then to, position adults to support you, but your role in coming and becoming an equity ambassador, taking leadership through ASB, your role is to really confront these issues and to say, what's the role that students can play in interrupting inequitable practices? And then how do you, through the ASB or through the student equity ambassadors, how do you help students play the role that they need to play? And then what is it that as adults, we need to be doing? So I'd be interested in just hearing from a few of you, what do you see as the primary way that students can move us beyond these arguments and these debates that have contributed to inequity, in our country for so long? And then how is your work, advancing the role that students can play? So I'd be, Vina, do you want to jump in on that?
Can you maybe just clarify the question?
Yeah, so if we know that some students have barriers that they shouldn't have because of all of these issues, then how do students help each other pass those barriers? And then what role do you play through ASB or through student equity ambassadors in pushing beyond those barriers? That's the question.
I can help with this question.
Yeah.
I can. So I know that a handful of us attended the Flip the Script event, so it was all about connecting the disconnected youth. And I feel like the most important thing about that youth are the ones talking about it is we have empathy. We understand that our friends are the ones that are being disconnected. We understand that our neighbor is the one who ends up outside of the system.
Yeah.
And that's why we're the ones that are supposed to be going through are the human-centered design thinking, and then we're supposed to be implementing actions for this. So I feel like if that answers your question, that's the role of our youth, to provide the perspective that has been missing from the argument amongst adults.
I also,
Thank you. Yeah.
If you look at that chart, we could go back to it, we start out with 39,329 students, close to 40,000. At the very end you have 26% completion. That's roughly 1 in 4. So in 7th grade, you start out with 40,000 people. By the end of the process, getting through a degree in college, a 4-year program, we only have 1/4. And then when you start looking at the groups that make up
Yeah.
1/4. So I think his question is, what's happening and what can you do?
That's right.
We're trying to figure out how to increase that percent.
And what I just heard from Johnny is about really creating community, so
Right.
your friends and the people you know aren't falling through the cracks. And go ahead. Yeah.
So at my school, we have this thing called peer mediation, and it's something that's really helpful. It's very, I'd say, like, it's very not secretive, but we don't let any of the information out to
Yeah.
the students. It's very personal. So I'd say that it's student to student. We can understand each other, so it's really helpful at my school.
The peer mediation.
The peer
program.
mediation.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
also think that, like, it's very important, like, I think, like, professional and student collaboration is very important.
Yeah.
Because, like, the student-to-student connections, that's on the ground, and that's how you establish community, like you said. And then you have to move, like, forward with, like, the administration and with school educators, because that's, like, I'm like, in my mind, I'm picturing like a diorama box, you know, those little shoebox things we would do like in the 3rd grade. Like, the shoebox is our infrastructure, and we need that to start building from within. And so the administration and our educators and school staff provide us with that structure.
Yeah.
And we're the ones who are on the ground with the boots on the ground and making those links within that project.
That's great. Makes a lot of sense.
So adding to that question that Johnny was talking about, these are our neighbors and we can empathize. I'm kind of wondering what you think as students, as far as when we look at the 1/4 that are having great success and then the other 3/4, how much are the students in that 1/4 really integrated and participating with the other students? Or is there a lot of, sort of filtering out this, I'm hanging with this type of people, these people are not dropping out of high school, or these people are going to college, or all these different things. I don't know, how do you, because that, they're all even in terms of racial and other issues, there's always been the things in high school, okay, we have a very integrated high school numerically, and then you go to the lunchroom or the cafeteria and, divide it up in some, not everywhere, but some places like that. So how do you, because it's one thing for all of us, to abstractly believe in equity and equality and, social justice and all these kind of things, but how much are students from the different groups really interacting?
To respond to Dr. Evans, I think the fact that not only do we have a council of ASB presidents, but now the Student Equity Coalition, it's just like, it's almost representing the fact that we're finally taking a step to address the groups that have been missing, the groups that aren't hanging out with the popular ASB kids, the groups that are divided in lunch, for example. And just one instance I do remember at my high school was that my dropout prevention, I think, resource teacher, it seems like the resource and guidance she provides does so much to the students who are on the brink of being disconnected, and I feel like an important solution to that is just connecting the students to the programs that we have, the resources that we have, and the fact that most of our students might not even know about all the things that can be offered to students to prevent them from being disconnected. It's just one point that I would like to make.
That's great. Diego.
I just have something to say.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing up this question. And when I heard it, it was more like, what are you students going to do? And I want to expand the question.
Yeah.
As what we're going to do, what the staff and the students are going to do together. Because you were discussing how we were talking about how is all the adults talking about the decisions of the students, and now we have some student voice. And I believe, for me, what's going to make the change is bringing the voices together.
Yeah.
And I did mention it in my goals for it, is student and teacher connections, because I believe that is the one major factor that creates the little cracks in the pipelines, because after all, we are kids, we are students, and we need support. We need support. And so I believe the biggest way to change this is to create that student-teacher connection and allow the students to make bonds with their teachers so that they understand the importance of education and why they're at school.
Thank you.
Well, we're lucky as a school district that you're stepping into these leadership roles, and you're very clear and articulate about how we're going to move this system forward. So thank you very much.
Just if I didn't make it clear, when I first presented the pipeline, this is the entire county. It's not San Diego.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Oh, I said that at the beginning, right? Okay, the 1 and 4 in the county. Okay.
It's too many. It's too many for San Diego.
Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll now move on. Can we get a motion on item F? Oh, I'm sorry, this is a public hearing on the, and a resolution in the matter of the certification of sufficient standards-aligned textbooks and instructional materials. So we will open the public hearing, and then do we do we have any speakers on this item? No. Okay. All right. And yes, go ahead.
Move the item.
I'll move the item.
Second.
Please vote. And can we get a motion on item
So
G2?
moved.
Second.
Please vote. And item I1, this is our agreement with Christie White Associates to provide a district-wide risk assessment and 5-year audit plan.
So moved for external auditing.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second.
And we've got one speaker, Francine Maxwell. You've got 3 minutes, Francine. Is Francine gone? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I was just going to.
Yes.
I was just going to say this is a part of the district's overall approach to our fiscal and operational controls that we've been discussing, and as we discussed in previous meetings, we advertised the RFP for this for a district-wide risk assessment and the ongoing audit for ongoing auditing, and we are expecting this 5-year partnership to enhance the already established strong practices of the district, and this moves forward with that process discussed in Audit and Finance Committee to have this risk assessment completed.
Great. Please vote. Okay, item I2, this is a public hearing and a resolution increasing school facility fees and determination that an increase in school facility fees is exempt from further environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act. Do we have a motion on this item? And do we have a second?
A second, and I have a question.
We've got one speaker, Lorraine Burley. Lorraine, you have 3 minutes. If people have questions.
Oh, there's Francine.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. I am speaking in support of this recommendation. The State Allocation Board made adjustments, and the district completed the required justification studies and qualifies. I read through the schoolhouse services study. It's a 42-page document. It's included in this. And it concludes that the new development projects cause a need for schools facilities in San Diego Unified School District. And it also concluded in its findings that the district has no excess capacity and it will need additional school facilities. So here, it's very clear justification for keeping the Scripps Mesa school property for district student use and canceling the sweetheart deal with Monarch Development to build apartments on 98% of the land. And what do you know? No closing schools for apartments. The cost for this apartment project keeps increasing while the benefits keep decreasing. The apartment project is off track and off course for any future success. There's charter school problems. That charter school still needs a home. There's environmental study problems. There's potential legal challenges. And then there's the big community relationship problem. Keep school property for schools, not for developers to build the apartments. No closing schools for apartments. Thank you.
Dr. Evans, do you have a question?
Yeah, if we could just, from the staff, have it explained in terms of what is the increase and what is our ability to do this? I mean,
Yeah,
we always want to raise funds, and
This item is
there's a way to do it.
This item allows the board to increase the developer fees that we collect that's based on the commercial industrial projects. We've not increased the fees since 2012. We currently levy the school impact fees or the developer fees at $3.20 per square foot, and this will increase it to 51 cents per square foot for commercial industrial projects. I don't know if Lee wants to add more to that.
Just to commercial and industrial? Okay.
Lee, is that correct? And residential?
Yeah, so this actually increases the fees from $3.20 a square foot to $3.48 a square foot for residential, and from 51 cents per square foot to 56 cents a square foot for commercial.
Okay.
Is that for building or land?
This is for building, so it applies to the building. It's to offset the impact of development on to provide school space for our students as an offset to the impact of the new residential development.
And what is our ability to raise this fee?
Are these maximums?
Right. Could you say $3, $10? I mean,
These are aligned with the study that was performed by Schoolhouse Services. They're in conjunction with California Ed Code, so we're allowed to do this periodically every other year, and the study is aligned with the inflation and the actual cost of construction increase over time.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Vice President Weiser.
You had said that it was adjusted for inflation under Ed Code or something to that effect, and that we have the ability to increase this every other year to match the inflation rate. Is there any way that we can automatically do that, to increase automatically every 2 years with inflation?
Unfortunately, the Ed Code requires us to go through the process of conducting a study in our area and evaluating all the parameters, but it does provide for this mechanism for us to increase the development impact fees every other year, but it doesn't, there's no automatic, the school, actually, you have to conduct a hearing and pass a resolution every other year.
I don't know that I heard the answer to Dr. Evans' question is this the maximum that we can charge for capacity of impact to the schools?
It's aligned with what is reasonable, what has been found reasonable by the study. So
okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me clarify what I said because I didn't say it right in the beginning. I think you clarified it, but it was $3.20 per square foot for residential is our current, and we're moving it up to 348 cents per square foot for residential. $3.48, yeah.
It's actually correct either way.
And 51 cents per square foot to 56 cents per square foot for commercial industrial projects.
Okay.
So, and what are the rules on the use of these funds?
They can only be used for capital facilities projects that address growth or that mitigate, provide school space to or classroom space in areas where growth occurs across the district, and we have a number of areas where there's infill development. For example, Mission Valley is an area, and I think at the next board meeting you'll be receiving a developer fee report from finance that will talk about how the funds are spent, and it also sort of looks forward. But we collect these fees, and then in areas where there's growth, we either expand schools or build new schools with these funds.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Please vote. Okay, and I believe we had one item, was it J19, the superintendent's consent agenda? Citizen, yeah.
J what, 19?
19.
Right.
When grants are being accepted, it's very important for staff and general counsel to look at these and make sure that the parameters fit the needs of the school district. It's very great to get free money, but you can't just take free money if there are strings attached to it that are not good for the school district. I was talking to the superintendent, and I told her you guys accepted a grant in which the grant specified this person keeps her job. And you can't do that with a grant. You can't have people from the outside saying, if you take our money, then you promise to give this person a job. It doesn't work that way. There are contracts and there are laws, and people have the right to expect that their seniority and all the things that go with being a public servant are obeyed. So these grants look good. Even if it's on a consent agenda, the superintendent is tasked with knowing what she is putting on that consent agenda and having approved. That one particular grant was from the Mr. Holland's Opus for a music program, and it was wrong to state, this person will keep her job, and that's the only way we're going to give you this money. And in instances like that, you need to vote no. People can't put strings onto money that they give this district that are illegal.
Okay, can we get a motion on this item?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
And I have questions. First of all, Superintendent, are any of these grants here contingent on a specific person being employed?
The City Heights grant?
It's their Price Philanthropies.
Yeah, no.
Euclid, Franklin,
Position
and
versus
Rowan
person.
Elementary.
No.
And then the other issue with that we've faced with grants before, when we had big grants from the Gates Foundation and so forth, was we began programs that they gave us money to begin, but we didn't necessarily continue to sustain them. So, I mean, these are much smaller amounts of money, but does this involve employing people for which we'll have a future obligation? No. No. Okay, then that's good.
All right, please vote. Okay, did we have any other non-agenda?
Yes.
Thank you. We've got Lydia Young and Francine Maxwell. You each have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Lydia Young. I'd like to thank you very much for having me today and seeing me. I would like to talk to you about the policies, specifically the zero tolerance policies that are going on in our school right now. A lot of students, not including one school, but most schools in the San Diego School District, have found that these policies have become too general and are not always put into action. And we have also found that they have become a blanketed term and more of a disclaimer for some of the schools to say, well, we're doing what needs to be done when the students feel like we're not safe anymore. So we have some groups, specifically minorities, such as LGBT, ethnic minorities, women, religious minorities, special education and special needs children. This also includes teachers and staff who feel that whenever we make reports to the school and to the school district about discrimination and bullying, they're not perceived the way that we would like them to be. I specifically had a really horrible incident happen to me just about a month ago, where I was really rigorously bullied in my classroom, and after multiple reports to the district, to the principal, and to the vice principal, all they gave to this particular student was a talking to, and this allowed the student to continue with her acts of hatred and discrimination. We found that students who feel like they will make a report are afraid and normally make anonymous reports because they are scared that the school will not fully enforce policies and will leave them victim to further bullying, such as my case. We would like the zero tolerance policies to involve all students to be treated under the policies as equal. This means that staff or district or whoever would put judgment on these bullies do not pick one favored group. We have found that many administrators view each incident specifically and show favoritism towards students based on biases, public opinion, and the contribution that these students give to the school. We would also like policies to be enforced regardless of any personal bias and change to include specific communities which have evolved within the last few years. We would also like these policies to include staff members and faculty because we found that they have been bullied too as of lately. And we would like all policies such as verbal abuse, discrimination, physical abuse, cyber abuse, and all other bullying acts to be enforced. And if they are not enforced, we would like a way to let the San Diego Unified School District know in specific schools that this are not being enforced and that we're not being heard. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you.
I would like to ask if the San Diego Unified School District could share when they're having contracts of $50,000 or more, when the contract and the report would be made public. So specifically, if there's a transparency issue and we're moving towards being more transparent, and if there's a contract for $50,000 with a 90-day report, will that 90-day report then be put on the shelf and then only the board members and trustees and staff will see it? There's nothing in the contract that calls for it to say when will it be made public. So I missed a particular agenda item, and so I can't reference that because I missed my time. But if we can just look at the totality of contracts and being in the spirit of transparency and with the timetable in the contract that says you will receive a report, if we can specify that it will be made public in such a time so that we all know in the spirit of transparency what the outcomes were and everything like that. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.